Remember when sports games were less about perfect realism and more about ridiculous, reality-bending fun? In the early 2000s, one brand was the undisputed king of arcade sports.
EA Sports.
EA Sports Big. They were loud, they were stylish, and they were unbelievably fun. They gave us gravity-defying snowboarders, ankle-breaking street ballers, and football with no helmets and no rules in a way no one else could. For a few glorious years, it felt like the party would never end. But then they just vanished. What happened to the label that gave us some of the most beloved sports games of all time? This is the story of the rise and tragic fall of EA Sports Big. Section 1. The Golden Age. The birth of Big. To understand what happened to EA Sports Big, we have to go back to the beginning. Back to a time when its parent company, Electronic Arts, was actively encouraging creative risks. The story goes that in the late 90s, EA had an internal policy reportedly called the Silver Bullet Initiative. The idea was simple. If you were part of a team that created a hit game, you earned a shot at creating a brand new IP from scratch. Enter Steven Rechtschaffner. A former pro freestyle skier turned game producer, Rechtschaffner had already proven his value at EA with his work on the successful Triple Play baseball series. Flush with that success and a passion for snowboarding, he was given the green light for his next big idea. A snowboarding game that broke all the rules. His vision was a game with the pick up and play fun of an arcade classic, not a rigid simulation, something anyone could enjoy, but only the dedicated could truly master. Initially, the project that would become SSX started development for the Sega Dreamcast, but after a reported falling out between EA and Sega, the game shifted its focus to a promising new console, the Sony PlayStation 2. When the dev team showed a demo to Sony executives, they were reportedly blown away. SX launched with the PlayStation 2 in 2000 and was an immediate massive hit. It was fast, stylish, and it absolutely did not take itself seriously. This was a perfect blend of high adrenaline racing and reality-defying tricks. But its arcade nature created a problem. It didn't fit the it's-in-the-game realism that EA Sports' other titles were chasing. The solution? Create a new sublabel. And just like that, EA Sports Big was born. The mission for Big was crystal clear. Create over-the-top, arcade-style sports games that focused on personality, style, and above all, fun. And for a while, they were unstoppable. A year after the first SSX, they released SSX Tricky, a game widely considered one of the greatest snowboarding titles of all time. Tricky took everything that made the original great and dialed it up to 11, with crazier tracks, more outlandish characters, and the iconic Uber tricks that became a series staple. It was a cultural phenomenon, and it cemented EA Sports Big as a powerhouse in the industry. Section 2. The peak. The streets are calling with the success of SSX. EA Sports Big had a winning formula. Their next move would take them from the snowy mountains to the asphalt courts of streetball, creating a franchise that would define the label's legacy. In 2001, they released NBA Street, which took the exaggerated gameplay of arcade basketball and infused it with the raw culture and flair of the urban blacktop. But it was the 2003 sequel, NBA Street Volume 2-Star, that became the label's masterpiece. Volume 2-Star is often hailed as one of the greatest sports games ever made, a perfect time capsule of early 2000s basketball and hip-hop culture. It featured an iconic soundtrack with beats from legends like Just Blaze and Pete Rock, and had the legendary MC Bobbito Garcia calling the plays, giving it an unmatched level of authenticity. The gameplay itself was pure artistry. It introduced legendary moves like Off the 𝐬𝐶 and Back to Papa, with a deep trick system that was both easy to learn and incredibly rewarding to master. The Be a Legend mode was a precursor to modern career modes, letting you create a player and rise through the ranks of streetball lore. You could even unlock NBA legends from different eras, including 3 different versions of Michael Jordan, something that had never been done before. For many players, it was their first introduction to icons like Pistol Pete Maravich and Connie Hawkins. NBA Street Volume 2-Star wasn't just a game. It was a cultural event. The Street formula was so successful that EA Sports Big applied it to other sports. 2004 saw the release of NFL Street, which stripped away the helmets and pads for a brutal, flashy, and rebellious take on American football. While it didn't reach the same critical heights as its basketball counterpart, it captured that same arcade spirit. A year later, FIFA Street brought the formula to soccer, and despite mixed reviews, it was a massive commercial success. By 2003, EA Sports Big was a force. They even published the wrestling game Def Jam Vendetta, which pitted real-life rappers against each other in the ring, further solidifying their reputation for blending sports with pop culture. The label was on top of the world. But this year also marked a crucial turning point. It was the last year that Steven Rechtschaffner, the man whose vision started it all, was directly involved as an executive producer, and with his departure, the downfall began. Section 3. The turning point and decline. So, what happened? How did a label that seemed to have the Midas touch just fade away? The decline of EA Sports Big wasn't a single event, but a toxic cocktail of changing market trends, corporate restructuring, and a loss of creative direction. After Steven Rechtschaffner moved to a different role within EA, the creative spark at BIG seemed to dim. The label that was built on pure innovation began to rely on iteration. Sequels like NBA Street v3 and NFL Street 2 were seen as decent, but they just didn't innovate the way their predecessors had. The magic was starting to wear off. Later titles like FIFA Street 2 and NFL Street 3 received poor reviews, with many feeling the formula had simply grown stale. At the same time, the entire gaming landscape was changing. The mid-2000s saw the rise of HD graphics and a huge market demand for hyper-realism in sports games. EA's main franchises, like Madden and FIFA, were becoming more and more focused on providing authentic simulation experiences. In this new environment, the over-the-top arcade style of EA Sports Big started to look like a relic, out of step with the company's broader strategy. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. The economic downturn hit the gaming industry hard, and EA was forced to make major changes. The company laid off over 10% of its workforce and shifted its entire strategy to become more risk-averse and profit-focused. Niche and experimental titles were suddenly seen as dangerous gambles. EA chose to double down on its guaranteed moneymakers, the core simulation franchises with their annual releases and, increasingly, their lucrative Ultimate Team modes. In this new, conservative corporate climate, a label like EA Sports Big, built from the ground up to take creative chances, no longer had a place. The brand was quietly phased out in 2008, following the release of its final games like FIFA Street 3 and NFL Tour. There was no grand announcement, no farewell tour. The label that had burned so brightly for a few short years simply disappeared. Section 4. The Aftermath and Legacy. Even though the label is gone, the legacy of EA Sports Big looms large. The games are remembered with a fierce nostalgia, a reminder of a time when fun and style were king. For years, fans have been crying out for remasters or reboots of SSX Tricky and NBA Street Vol. 2 Star, games that many feel have never been surpassed. The influence of the Street series can be seen in how modern sports games have tried to incorporate more accessible, stylized modes. But nothing has quite captured that same magic. The end of EA Sports Big marked the end of an era for big-budget arcade sports titles, a void in the market that gamers have felt for over a decade. But there may be a glimmer of hope on the horizon. In recent years, we've seen the rise of spiritual successors. A new studio founded by Steven Rechtschaffner himself, Supernatural Studios, announced they were working on a free-to-play snowboarding game that pays homage to SSX House. Another independent studio, Play by Play, which features developers from the original NBA Streets team, announced a 3-on-3 streetball game called The Run Got Next, which is planned for release in 2026. These projects prove that the hunger for that classic arcade feel is still very much alive. Will we ever see an official return of the EA Sports Big brand? In today's gaming world, it seems unlikely. But the impact of their games is undeniable. They defined a generation of sports gaming and created some of the most cherished memories for anyone who grew up with a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox. They proved that sports games could be more than just simulations. They could be playgrounds for creativity, style, and pure, unadulterated fun. What was your favorite EA Sports BIG game? What's your most cherished memory from SX Tricky or NBA Street Volume? Let us know in the comments below.